Well, in this module, we want to talk about 8 adult life patterns that affect people's marriages. And you may have children that are already adults, already married, and you will see this for sure in their lives. And this ties back to lack of blessing. So all that we're talking about in this particular module is the consequences of lack of blessing in childhood. When people have not received an impartation of blessing from their father, from their mother, they've not grown up in a culture of blessing, or maybe just the opposite. They actually grew up in a culture of cursing, and they had the devil's message imparted to them over and over and over again. And so it creates a wound on the inside in the heart, and then people will respond to that woundedness in 2 basic ways. And so one way that people respond when they've been cursed, when they have not received an impartation of blessing from a dad or mom, one way they can respond is by trying to cut that parent off. So it's like, I don't need you, I'll cut you off. If you won't bless me, I don't need your blessing, I don't need your love, I don't need you, I don't care about you. I cut you off, and I make myself my own authority, and I'm not receiving from you or being open to you anymore. And they allow bitterness to get in their heart. And the crazy thing about that is when you try to cut a parent off and let bitterness come in your heart, you actually bind your heart to that parent, because you create an emotional focus of people a focus toward people you're bitter toward. And your soul is just like a camera. It will go to work and reproduce exactly the image that it's focused on. So if you focus on particular qualities that you hated in your dad or hated in your mom, or your children do the same, it's very likely that they will reproduce those same patterns in their own life and in the life of their marriage partner, and will impact the marriage. So one way people's hearts are bound to their parents is when they try to cut that father off, cut that mother off, because they didn't receive blessing. The second way the heart can be bound is by retaining a longing in the heart to receive blessing and an unconscious motivation. If I try hard enough, I'll finally hear those words from my dad, I love you, I'm proud of you, you're really doing well. Or from your mom, I love the way you turned out, you're great, you're doing well. So it's I will strive to try to receive blessing. And that sets people up with totally different patterns in marriage. And so you will see these, and of course, if you're married, you can apply it to your own marriage also, but we're looking especially about children. Now, I discovered this when I began doing marriage counseling many years ago. Jan and I received so much healing in our own marriage, and God transformed us that we began to share the principles that we had learned and minister to other people, married couples. And I saw so many couples in strife and fighting against one another and not being one flesh. And I was reading Genesis 2:24, which says, "For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh." And I thought, well, this man and this woman are certainly not one flesh. They're not one mind. They're not one heart. They're not one spirit. They've not been joined together. Why is that? And the Lord said, well, just back up the scripture. I backed it up. Well, okay, for this reason a man shall leave his father and mother. Oh, could it be that the reason that they can't be joined and cleave together is because they never properly left? And I saw that. And I said, Lord, what is the key to leaving? And I've said this in earlier modules, but the key to leaving is impartation of blessing. So when my mother blesses me, it creates an ability to in a healthy way, be loosed from her, have the umbilical cord with her cut, and I can be released to walk in my own adult identity. And when I'm blessed by my father, it gives me an ability to not continue to strive and long after blessing from him or a surrogate in his place. And it empowers me not to be bitter at him and reject him and go, he didn't bless me, I don't need him, I don't care about him, which causes me to harden my heart, put a wall there, and push him and others that remind me of him away. So we're going to look at these 2 different character styles, or these 2 different life patterns. One is I long after the blessing from a parent from whom I didn't receive blessing. The other is I've cut that parent off, and it impacts how people respond in marriage. So when they're not blessed, and this is, by the way, not the correct response. So all these 8 adult life patterns are what happen to people who don't respond correctly when they're not blessed. The correct response is going to God and forgiving the parent and receiving from God the blessing that didn't come through the dad, that didn't come through the mom, which brings the soul into peace. So when my soul is at rest, my soul is in peace, I'm not striving to become valuable. I'm not striving to do something very important to make this feeling of worthlessness go away. But if that hasn't been settled, then I'm going to do one of two things. I'm going to strive to make myself valuable, or I'm just going to push people away and shut them out and say, I don't need them. So these are the two different things. Now, all of us had a dad, all of us had a mom, so we can have either one of those two patterns with the dad, either one of those two patterns with the mom. So that would be 4 patterns that I can walk in, one or the other from a dad, one or the other from a mom. Now when I get married, then the person I marry also had a dad and a mom, so they can have one of those 2 patterns in their lives. So we combine those, you get 8 different potential combinations of these patterns. Now, let me just say this before we start into it. This is a model. What I mean by that is it doesn't fit anybody perfectly. Nobody's going to look at that and, well, I'm exactly this, and my wife is that, and my brother-in-law is that, and my adult son is this. No, it isn't going to fit anybody exactly, but you'll see some characteristics here. And what you want to do about these in the life of your son or the life of your daughter, if you see these things operative in an adult son or daughter or spouse, the way that you eradicate that is through blessing them. Imparting love, imparting blessing, that's what solves these things that we're talking about, okay? These are not things that we just accept. These are not things that we just go, well, that's how it is. No, no, no. These are things that are not as they're supposed to be, that are indicators of a lack of blessing. So I just want to preface it with that. So let's look at these first 2 in this lesson. The first one is this one, where the father did not bless his son or rejected or hurt his son, and the son decides to cut his father off. He rejects his father. Okay, if you don't bless me, I don't need you. I'm not going to bless you. What's going to happen to that man in adult life? He is predisposed not to receive love and blessing from a man. And when I say love, I'm not talking in a homosexual way. I'm just talking about he's predisposed to shut men out of his life. He puts a wall there and says, they will probably hurt me, just like my dad did. So he expects to be rejected and not approved of by men. Now you can imagine what that does in an employment situation. Suppose your boss is a man. Well, there's an expectation. My boss is going to treat me just like my dad treated me. He's going to reject me. He's not going to approve of me. Nothing I do is ever going to be good enough for my boss. And I've had people work for me like that. And the problem is, no matter how much you try to bless them, no matter how much you try to approve them, they've got a lie deep on the inside that says, you don't like me. You have it out for me. You don't care about me. And that is a setup to get fired. Because if you have a wall there that says no man is going to ever receive me, I'm never going to be good enough, I'm never going to measure up, then you're going to struggle with male authorities all the time. So the identity of this man is likely to be established in himself. He has an independent spirit. He may have that macho image. In his career, he may be a workaholic and strive for achievement. I'll show everybody that I'm going to make something out of myself. So I've given several examples of this. I think I shared in an earlier module about a friend. I called him Paul. That actually wasn't his real name. But Paul had a father who's, remember the 87-year-old father, 65-year-old son. The 65-year-old son had been literally cursed and kicked out of his house at age 15 rather than blessed. What happened? He became a workaholic, striving, made a lot of money to try to make himself feel valuable, but was angry all the time, fighting with his wife all the time, and after 45 years of marriage was in the middle of a divorce. What solved that? Impartation of blessing from his 87-year-old father totally changed everything. So this man can be a workaholic, striving for achievement with his money. He hangs on to money because he perceives money as a measure of success, as a measure of his value. So he has a fear of lack, a need to accumulate. Regarding power and status, he's shallow and manipulative. He doesn't build deep relationships because he doesn't trust anybody, because he learned from his dad, if you open up and try to engage with other people, they'll just hurt you and curse you, so he keeps himself aloof. In ministry, this kind of person many times can be a ministry superstar because they're very gifted. And what I find with people like this, they find a way to not have a boss. They find a way to be an entrepreneur, either in ministry or in business. And sometimes they're really good entrepreneurs, but they just burn all the relationships they have. They don't make friendships easily. They don't submit to authority easily. It's because they don't trust, because they've got a bitterness in their heart toward their dad. And this isn't solved until there's an impartation of blessing either from God or from a father. And so they put their identity in any role in which this man feels he can prove himself to be a real man. Now, some of the potential results I've already begun to talk about. He has a lot of conflict with male authorities, doesn't do well with bosses, doesn't need or trust other people. He's insensitive to the needs of others, doesn't really care about other people. He's goal-oriented, project-oriented, certainly not people-oriented. Tends to be hard and harsh in relationships, and frequently will reproduce in his own life the very qualities he hated in his dad. I remember one man shared with me, he was on the verge of divorce himself. His wife saw me first. They were both Christians, loved the Lord. He owned a business, owned several car dealerships, but he was a workaholic. And his wife said he doesn't spend any time at home, doesn't spend any time with his kids, doesn't spend time with me, and I've about had it with this. He works like 18 hours a day, and I asked her, is there like a financial problem? Are you in trouble financially? She laughed. She said, we're multimillionaires. He owns several car dealerships. We do very well. Well, why does he have to work so hard? She said, that's my question. I don't know. So when I met with him, I found out, as you might suspect, it tied right back to a cursing of identity when he was a 6-year-old little boy. He was failing at school, not doing well in first grade. His dad actually took him for a ride in a brand new luxury car. I think it was a Cadillac or a Mercedes or something, and took him all over town. And afterwards he said, son, I hope you enjoyed the ride, because you'll never have a car like that because you're stupid. Well, that son received that lie, I'm stupid, and his flesh went to work to disprove for the rest of his life. I'll show you I'm not stupid. I will to amount to something. And that was the root of this workaholism. And let me just tell you this crazy thing. Do you know that this couple had 2 kids, and a daughter was the firstborn and then a son? Do you know that second-born son wasn't doing well in school in first grade? So guess what this father did? Took his son out, said the same thing to him that his dad said. Took him for a ride in a luxury automobile and said, son, I hope you enjoyed the ride, because you'll never have a car like this because you're stupid. And said to his own son the very same thing. Cursed his son, rejected his son, just like his dad had him. And he hadn't even thought of that or correlated that until we got in a ministry context, brought him into the presence of the Lord, and God exposed and revealed all that and removed the lie that you're stupid, you'll never amount to anything. And here was the crazy thing. His dad had died several years ago. His dad wasn't even alive, and yet there was a powerful compulsion. I'll show him. And so he had reproduced in his own life the harshness, the hardness, the same qualities he hated in his dad, who also didn't spend any time with his kids, didn't spend any time with his wife. Reproduced that in his own life and didn't even realize it. And so that's what happens when we let bitterness get inside. Okay, what's his relationship like in marriage? He views his wife that her primary purpose is to complete his masculine identity. So her role is to make him feel like a man. But he doesn't ever enter her world. He doesn't really share his world with her. He doesn't open his heart to anybody because he's afraid he's going to get wounded and hurt. He's got a big shell around his heart, and he shuts everybody out and just sends everybody the message, I just don't really need you. You're not of any value to me. So he doesn't grant his wife access to his heart. He comes across as insensitive, discourteous, selfish, only thinks about himself, and his wife feels not loved, not needed, low priority. She certainly feels used sexually. And so he just sends his wife this message, I'm not going to let you in. I've got a wall around my heart. I'm self-sufficient. I'm independent. You need to be here to complete me, but I'm not letting you into my life. So that can be devastating and do a lot of damage in the marriage. Okay, the second one, let's look at that. The father has rejected the son, and the son, in this case, rather than cutting his dad off and saying, I don't need his blessing, I don't care about him. This one says, I'll get his blessing. If I work hard enough, he'll finally approve of me. And the other one's also striving for that, but he's got a huge wall there. This one basically says, I need love and respect and honor and blessing from basically anyone who will give it to me. So he's predisposed to strive after acceptance and blessing from a man. This man is a great employee to have because he wants to please the boss. See, the first one we talked about, he didn't care about the boss. It's like, I know more than the boss anyway. I don't need a boss. This one is wanting to please the boss because he has that thing in his heart. I'm looking for approval. I'm looking for affirmation. So he'll do whatever is needed to be accepted and approved of by his pastor, by his boss, by people that are important to him, especially male figures, other men. So his identity is primarily established in others. See, the first one we talked about, the identity is established in self. This one, his identity is established in other people. So he cares very deeply what other people think of him. See, the first one doesn't really care what other people think of him. And it doesn't matter. This one cares deeply what other people think of him. So he cares what his wife thinks about him. He cares about what his children think about him, cares what his boss thinks about him, what his pastors think about him, what his friends think about him. He cares about everybody else. And the potential results in his life, he is highly sensitive to the needs of other people, especially his wife. That's why she was excited to marry him. He cares about me. He cares about other people. He's compassionate. He's caring. But many times because of that, he can be perceived maybe as sort of soft and tender, or maybe sometimes even effeminate or weak or sissy. So when he's growing up, he can be bullied. He can be teased by other boys because he longs for approval. He's non-confrontational, doesn't want to confront anybody, but just wants to be accepted by everybody. He's highly self-critical. He's a lot of undue striving to be accepted by other people, and especially by men. So he is going to tend to have a lot of conflict with male authorities. He doesn't really need or trust other people. He's insensitive to the needs of other people, tends to be highly self-critical, and may even despise his own masculinity. He entertains, this is not always true, but on occasion it can move in a direction of homosexuality. And the way that works is, my dad didn't bless me, my dad doesn't care about me, my dad makes me feel worthless, so I'm looking for somebody else who's a male figure who likes me, who will make me feel valuable. And so there's a potential direction into homosexuality. This is one of the ways that I've seen that develops, not the only way, but a potential where somebody's personality can go in that direction, looking to receive from another man what should have been received from the father, which is basically blessing. It's possible he can take on more effeminate type of characteristics again. And if that happens in childhood or in teenage years, he may be teased or bullied, that sort of thing. So his relationship in marriage is that this man probably abdicates his role as head of the house. He just says to his wife, whatever you want, it's okay. And she ends up picking up lots of things that he should have done. I shared a story with you in an earlier module of a man who just didn't take responsibility for anything in his house. And his wife had to take responsibility for everything. For him, that was tied back to more cursing of identity from his mother, but he abdicated the responsibility as head of the house, and his wife had to do everything. That frequently comes when somebody is striving after blessing, but they're afraid if they try anything, they might do it wrong. So he's outwardly compassionate, sensitive toward his wife. She loves that. That's why she married him. But perfectionism will strain the marriage. This man also may be a perfectionist. And the reason is he was shamed growing up and made to feel like the only way that I can really be loved and valuable is if I do everything perfectly. So he wants to do everything perfectly. Otherwise, he's got a little voice inside him that condemns himself. And so he never received blessing from his dad. His dad never said, enough. His dad never said, you've done it. I bless you. You've made it in my book. You're a success. So there's something constantly churning inside. I've got to do more. I've got to do more. I've got to do more. If there are homosexual fantasies or relationships, obviously that's going to strain a marriage. And depression and self-criticism is going to emotionally drain a wife. So if this man condemns himself, criticizes himself, is always running himself down, his wife tries to build him up, but it's like it's never enough. And it's like, oh my goodness, I can't help this man. I mean, I can't help my husband. No matter how much I try to build him up, he runs himself down. So the wife in this relationship oftentimes feels ignored, not needed, low priority, and not loved. These kinds of things is what is experienced in marriage. And so you can see how these two different life patterns are completely different, both coming from lack of blessing from a father, but one responds by cutting the father off, the other responds by striving after blessing from others that would take the place of the blessing that never came from the father. And you can see how this will strain relationship in marriage. Okay, so if you see this in yourself, or you see this in your children, the solution is impartation of blessing to your son, to your daughter, to your children. In yourself, the solution really is probably to go through one of our weekend experiences like Blessing Generations and come into the presence of the Lord. Let somebody lead you through the process to come before God and let Him identify the lies in your heart, remove them, and impart to you the blessing that was never received from your dad. When that actually happens on an experiential level, it changes the marriage. It changes all these things to where a person can come into a peace in their heart and a security in their heart. Let me pray. Father, I pray for each father and mother right now, for each son and daughter. Lord, I pray that you would identify anything in us that relates to these particular patterns that are not from you, Lord, that are ways that we have learned to cope with lack of blessing in our lives and wounding in our lives. And Father, I pray that you would give us your strategy, what you want us to do regarding our own adult children, children that still live at home, and regarding our own lives. And Father, I thank you for your grace poured out upon us to lead us into walking with you and being agents of blessing to those around us, especially in our family. In the mighty name of Jesus, amen.